So one of the things we've seen a lot of in the past couple months is the right going all in with this narrative that LGBTQ people, and specifically LGBTQ teachers, are groomers. And they're trying to sexualize our young kids and indoctrinate them into gender ideology, which is to confuse them about whether, if you're a boy, are you really a boy? If you're a girl, are you really a girl? And, you know, the argument is this is on purpose, it's top down, and it's confusing them. It's forcing them to have a left-wing ideology. This is something we've heard a lot of. And you have Twitter accounts like Libs of TikTok, for example. They'll look all over TikTok and try to find examples of some weird pink-haired teacher in some school district that, you know, said some questionable things or taught some questionable thing, and then they use that to extrapolate to all teachers, or certainly all LGBTQ teachers. And there's this real, like, moral panic and hysteria going on right now. Now, remember when Matt Walsh was on Joe Rogan's show, he said, like, millions of kids are on, hormone therapy because they're, you know, trans or whatever. And then they looked it up and the number was like 4,000 or 5,000 kids, just nowhere near, just way overestimating, you know, what they think is a big issue. So, the whole groomer discourse has been sketchy to say the least. Well, guess what? We just got some new information coming out of Wyoming, which flips that whole groomer narrative right on its head. Efforts to raise the age of marriage to 16 in Wyoming have stalled. Let me repeat that. Efforts to raise the age of marriage to 16 in Wyoming have stalled as the Wyoming GOP is urging its constituents to oppose a bill to add a minimum age. Not because the bill is too weak, but because the bill stood to rob their constituents of constitutional rights to marry a child. Wow. So all this talk of the LGBTQ groomers, bro, we got to protect our kids, bro. Protect them to what? To marry them off at the age of 14? Apparently, yes. That's what they want to do. All right, so we have this video here. Let's play it.
The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 7. Reading clerk will read. Please read it in.
House Bill 7 engrossed. Underage marriage amendments.
Raging because they wanted to raise the legal marriage age to 16.
I'd ask the body to resist this change and vote no on the bill. There are communities such as our Amish, Hutterites, and Mennonites here in Wyoming that would be in violation of this law if it was to pass.
So because they have the Amish and the Mennonites, these sort of fringe religious groups that live a certain way, they're like, well, we don't want to offend them. We don't want to offend their culture. You know, they're in violation of it. It wouldn't be right. No, but it is right. But it is right. They shouldn't be doing child marriage stuff. Why all of a sudden when it comes to like religions, Republicans are like, oh, well, they say religious liberty, bro, so it is what it is. Okay, stretch that argument to its logical conclusion. If a religion was still doing ritual human sacrifice, would you be like, hey, murder in this instance is not really murder, so we're going to go ahead and let it slide? What if somebody says it's part of my religion to I was going to say sexually assault kids, but that is kind of what they're in favor of here, right? If you're being forced to marry at 15 or whatever, you're signing them up for abuse. Wow, this is low. They say the bill would also require anyone under the age of 18 seeking to get married. Let's see what else. To receive written consent from their parents under the eye of a witness.
15 to 12. House Bill 7 has passed.
The bill has already passed the Republican-controlled House, so the House had passed.
Committee of the Whole.
The proposal to impose an age of marriage of 16 was favorable with some Republicans in the state. Good, glad some are on the right side, leading to the first real momentum the bill has seen in some time. Wyoming is one of 8 states in the country without a minimum age requirement for marriage. What? There are 8 states that allow child marriage? Jesus Christ. Ranks among the top 10 states in the country for child marriage. Okay. So they go on to say here, the party emailed materials to constituents from Wyoming Family Watch, a religious lobbying group organized by a conservative pastor in the state, arguing that preventing child marriage under 16 from preventing children under the age of 16 from marrying denies the fundamental purpose of marriage. Currently, the state allows marriage licenses to become a get-out-of-jail-free card for a rapist, particularly if they impregnate the victim, trapping kids in a legal quandary they can't escape as it enters a minor into a marriage before they're old enough to bring legal action. This stuff is dark, bro. This stuff is dark. So in Newsweek, they wrote about this. Wyoming limiting child marriage sparks Republican outrage. Now, again, to be fair, some Republicans are on the right side, but there are many who are not. The Wyoming Republican Party is seeking to kill a bill working its way through the state legislature proposing to raise the state's legal marriage age to 16, arguing that putting arbitrary limits on child marriage interferes with parental rights and religious liberty. Oh, that's amazing. So if it's an LGBTQ teacher who just wants to teach about gay marriage or teach that trans people exist, stop it, you're sexualizing our kids, this is not okay. Protect the kids. But if it's a 14-year-old religious person in Wyoming trying to marry off their kid to an adult, it's, bro, don't put arbitrary limits on their lifestyle. Let them live the way they want to live, bro. What happened to protecting the kids? By the way, at the same time, this is a very important fact to bring up. They're screaming about protecting kids. You have a number of Republican states around the country trying to bring back child labor. So they want to protect kids from LGBTQ indoctrination, aka learning about gay marriage or learning that trans people exist. Protect them from that so you can be sent to the mine or married to some religious creepy weirdo. That's good. The bill, which already passed the Republican-controlled Wyoming House of Representatives on a 36-25 vote last month, 25 voted against it, proposes banning state residents from marrying anyone under the age of 16 while requiring anyone under the age of 18 seeking to get married to receive written consent from their parents under the eye of a competent witness. The debate has been a long-standing one in Wyoming. Good. That's good. It's good. You know, instead of the conversations we should be having are like, let's give everybody health care, let's stop bombing so many countries, let's do sectoral bargaining so workers could get higher wages, let's lower prescription drug prices. No, in Wyoming, they're like, me want marry 13-year-old. And that's a debate. It's a hot debate going on right now. Currently, Wyoming is one of just 8 states in the country, including California, Michigan, Mississippi, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Washington, and West Virginia, without a minimum age requirement for marriage. And it currently ranks among the top 10 states in the country for child marriages, according to a 2021 study by advocacy group Unchained at Last. Efforts to raise the age of marriage in the state have consistently stalled. For years, now retired Laramie Democratic Representative Charles Pelkey sponsored legislation to raise the age of marriage to 18, only to fail with every effort. Wow. So look, this guy should be a right-wing hero because they care so much about protecting kids in the national discourse, all these conservatives, and here you have a Democratic representative who kept fighting to raise it to 18. It's also a common practice across the country even now. While the number of child marriages nationally has been in a steady free fall over the last few decades, well, that's good. Just 7 states to date have voted to ban it entirely, even as countries like the Philippines pass national laws banning the practice. So that's good. That's good. Other states like Tennessee have actually sought to go in the opposite direction, with Republicans there seeking last year to eliminate any limits on marriage entirely until public outrage forced them to reverse course. Wow. This reminds me, remember, Matt Walsh, who sees a trans groomer behind every door, he said on his radio show years ago that he thinks it's perfectly normal for like a 16-year-old or 17-year-old girl. It's like, hey, that's when they're most fertile. They should get married at that age. So the guy who wants to protect kids is actually super sketchy on the issue of protecting kids. This year, however, a proposal in Wyoming to impose an age floor of 16 has found favor with some Republicans in the state, leading to the first real momentum the bill has seen in some time. Earlier this week, the Wyoming Senate voted up the bill on first reading, leaving it just 2 more votes before it would ultimately head to Governor Mark Gordon's desk. It's essentially a do-nothing bill. According to Unchained at Last, an anti-child marriage advocacy group, approximately 97% of child marriages in Wyoming are to girls aged 16 and 17, meaning it would likely impact only a small number of children. it's really great the legislators want to protect 3% of those who are impacted by child marriage. Wow. So in other words, the guy kept proposing 18, 18, 18, and they go, that's too high. They drop it to 16, and they're like, okay, maybe. And the reason they're 97% of them are 16 or 17. And so they're like, yeah, maybe if 14, 13, that's questionable, but 16 is fine. Anyway, look, I actually think, here's my hot, spicy take at the end of this this story. I actually do think it's a fair debate what the line is for everything, right? I've advocated for a long time. I do think 16 and up should be the case for, tobacco, alcohol. Now alcohol is 21. It used to be, I think, 18. Now it's 21. Voting, go into the military. I understand. I think there's reasonable debate between people anywhere from age 16 to age like 20, 21 or 22, right? That range is somewhere in there. You should draw the line and draw a clean line, and everything above that you allow. So I actually think 16 and up is fair, but it is kind of concerning that we're talking about no limits in 8 states. None. No limits at all. I never would have guessed that was already the law in 8 states. I would have said whatever the age of consent, I would assume whatever the age of consent is when you're allowed to get married, right? So a lot of states it's 18, a lot of states it's 17, a lot of states it's 16. Wouldn't that be the default assumption? Like, hey, whenever you can legally consent to sexual activities is when you can legally consent to marry. But apparently no. The age of consent for sexual activity and the consent for marriage is totally different. You have some states with no age for marriage. Well, that's crazy. So it wouldn't even be legal if it was like it wouldn't be illegal if it was like a 12-year-old or like an 8-year-old, or that wouldn't be illegal in some states. That's wild. That's wild. So anyway, kind of crazy. We're still having this debate in 2023, but here we are. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.